Welcome to the Not Old Better Show, the show covering all things health, wellness, culture, and more. The show for all of us who aren't old, we're better. Each week, we'll interview superstars, experts, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things, all related to this wonderful experience of getting better, not older. Now, here's your host, the award-winning Paul Vogelzang.
Welcome to the Not Old Better Show author interview series on radio and podcast. I'm Paul Vogelzang, and today's show is brought to you by GoldCo and Shipstation. This is the place where wisdom meets curiosity and experience meets the new. And we are all on this journey of exploration and insight together. So today we're delving into a subject that touches all of us, especially as we age, the concept of uncertainty. In an era where quick answers and certainty are often valued above all, our guest today challenges us to rethink this notion. We have with us Maggie Jackson, an acclaimed author whose new book, Uncertain, The Wisdom and Wonder of Being Unsure, nominated for a 2023 National Book Award. Maggie Jackson's new book has already garnered attention and praise. It's a book that doesn't just ask us to tolerate uncertainty, but to embrace it, to see it as a source of wisdom, creativity, and resilience. In our interview today, Maggie Jackson brings to light how uncertainty can be especially relevant for us, the older adults who have navigated life's many twists and turns. Maggie Jackson argues today that in the unpredictability and complexity of our times, there's an unsung triumph in not always having the swift, sure answer, including the cost of clinging to a pretense of certainty.
The costs of clinging to a pretense of certainty in our technologies and across our lives are mounting. Too often in corridors of power, across media channels, and around the kitchen table, people trade airtight convictions that admit neither to the fresh air of fact nor to the winds of amendment. It has become common and even lauded to retreat from the discomfort of a measure of complexity or an alternative point of view. Calls for dismantling mistaken assumptions of the past are stymied by hatred, paralysis, and fear, while complex crises are flamed by a reliance on knee-jerk solutions. Uncertainty is no grand panacea for the ills of our era, yet simply by realizing that at any given moment we might not know, we begin to free ourselves from the destruction wrought by a closed mind. Already, tendrils of change are unfurling. No longer is it quite as taboo for a doctor, lawyer, or politician to publicly admit to being unsure. Some medical students are being taught to bolster their diagnostic skill by admitting to patient and colleague alike if they do not yet know. No longer is it an automatic career killer for a young scientist to explore the remarkable ways in which the human mind finds solace and wisdom in pausing, in reverie, or in simply doing nothing at all. And one day, sooner than you imagine, you might work side by side with a robot that will ask you good questions and admit to its uncertainty, all the while expecting that you in turn will do so too. In an era of flux, we are a long way from fully realizing the wisdom of working at the edge of the unknown. But the makings of a seismic shift in humanity's approach to not knowing are emerging. It's not outrageous, and increasingly it's necessary to ponder a future in which our uncertainty can save humanity. And it's not too soon to begin working toward this end.
That, of course, is our guest today, award-winning New York Times bestselling author, reading from her new book, Uncertain, The Wisdom and Wonder of Being Unsure. So whether you're facing changes in your personal life, adapting to the rapid pace of technology, or simply looking for a new perspective on the experiences you've gathered over the years, this episode promises to offer a fresh, enlightening viewpoint. Join us as we explore the uncharted territories of the mind with Maggie Jackson and uncover the hidden strengths in the spaces of not knowing. Stay tuned, as this promises to be an engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Maggie Jackson, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you, Paul.
It's nice to talk with you, too. You have so generously read a passage from your new book, Uncertain. The book delves into what I'll call kind of the virtues of uncertainty. And I wonder if we could just start there and maybe just say, how are those virtues relevant to all of us, but maybe how we age?
Yes, I think those are great points. And I'm thinking along the exact same lines, that because older years are traditionally a time for slowing down in various ways. That seems to be kind of a mantra. And the one definition of wisdom is the discovery of how much you don't know. That's, proven in scientific studies. And of course, it's a truism of ancient philosophy from Socrates on down. And so I think when we can begin to discover the wisdom of not knowing, the wisdom of being unsure in order to gain the better answer, not just rush to an answer, then we can really understand what lifelong learning is all about. We can know that exploring the unknown, kind of being a little bit beyond our comfort zone, is uncomfortable, and yet that's where humans thrive. There's also a saying among scientists, no surprise, no learning. And I think rather than kind of rote associations or conditioning, as in Pavlov's dogs, the latest thinking on learning is that we need to break our expectations and our assumptions, which are so entrenched. That's how we sail smoothly through the day and know just what to do. But really, when we begin to learn how to break the inertia of our knowledge, then we gain much, room for cognitive expansion, for learning, for growth, etc. So I think that maybe many older adults live this in their lives, and yet in a society that's highly, highly rushed and hurried and instant, where knowing is being redefined as something you just Google. I think we all need a little corroboration, even if we understand, as you say, the sense of this.
I like that. I do think we all feel very rushed. I think in a world of 140 characters, we're all trying to unearth a nugget from 4 words, perhaps, when you're really championing this idea in uncertainty that things might take a little bit longer, that a good decision comes from some debate, and it comes from not knowing and not being a know-it-all, maybe, but giving everybody a chance to kind of participate in a decision. But I think as we age, there's a great deal of unpredictability, and knowing that uncertainty sometimes brings with it a little bit of debate. How do we kind of bring those two together so that we can live and get things done and be efficient with all of our time, but still give time to understanding a question properly so that we can really answer it and get it the right answer?
Yes, no, exactly. I mean, the sort of bottom line is that uncertainty is not the end goal. And here, maybe I'll take a minute just to define uncertainty, because that will give listeners a little grounding.
Yeah, thank you.
We often talk about the uncertainty, that is a shorthand for the unknown. That's sort of the headlines in the papers. That's the lament during COVID, the uncertainty, et cetera, et cetera. But, and that, of course, is, the idea that we can gain a foothold onto aspects of life that we can't know has been largely done through probabilistic reasoning, through mathematical models, through data, through predictions. So you don't know if it's going to rain on your daughter's wedding next Thursday. You can get an inkling, but you really actually don't know. And so that's the unknown that we just have to live with. In complement, or at the same time, there's the human response to the unknown. That is our uncertainty. So when we meet something new and unexpected and murky and ambiguous, such as the future, or just something we just don't know about, the shadow on the forest trail, then we are, humans have a response to that, and that therein lies many, many aspects of human life. Our response to uncertainty really has so much to do with, how we argue, how we learn, how we, grow, how we confront sticky problems, etc. The uncertainty is an incredibly epic chance to investigate, explore, to be curious, to wonder, etc. So it's not just a gateway, as I'd like to point out later, but I think it's an important to know that it's a way to keep the problem open. And just one little bit of science that underscores this is that superior experts, that is the best experts, actually take longer to assess new complex problems than even novices do. That's showing that indicates that the best experts, superior performers, are actually willing to embrace the space of uncertainty.
Yeah, again, thank you, because that leads me to this question about sometimes extended analysis is exactly what the brain needs in order to grow and in order to enhance cognition. And so I think as we're embracing this uncertainty, it has some real scientific benefits to us. And you touch on this idea, but you also say that it's a healthy form of stress. And I wonder if you explain that and tell us why.
Yes, that is an incredibly important point. So if uncertainty is our reaction to the unknown, well, as we all can understand, the first starting point is uneasiness. It's your first day on the new job, or you've moved to a new city, or you're in a foreign country and you're a little lost, and you're going to be unsettled by that. That is, in a nutshell, a stress response. It's the natural response to the human meeting with the unknown, because we want and need answers to survive. So we're given, we evolved a stress response in order to motivate us, so to speak. Your heart beats, your hands might sweat, but at the same time, scientists are just beginning to discover what happens in the brain at this moment in time when you are confronting the unknown. And they're discovering that there are remarkable positive changes when we're unsure. For instance, your focus broadens, so you become more sort of vigilant of the environment. Your working memory is bolstered. You get an uptick in memory, believe it or not, and your brain becomes more receptive to new data. So as you can tell, we don't need a scientific background to say, wow, that's a kind of wakefulness. We're on our toes, we're unsure. And indeed, one scientist told me, at that moment, when you recognize that you don't know and you've reached the limits of your knowledge, your brain is telling itself something's to be learned here. That's his quote, which was a wonderful quote. In other words, it's a signal to ourselves that the status quo won't do, and it's time to update our understanding of the world. And so when you retreat from, or you're fearful, or just really don't like uncertainty so much so that you won't withstand it for even a minute or two, you're squandering the opportunity to learn. And studies in laboratory settings have shown that the people who are most stressed when things are most unpredictable in a dynamic environment are the ones who are actually most accurate, better performers. They are I call it leaning into uncertainty, because part of stress hormones are actually related to cognitive effort. So in other words, you can be, willing to be stressed. It's kind of called sweat equity. It's kind of rolling up the sleeves of your mind, so to speak. I think that is just such an incredibly important starting point, so that we can understand that uncertainty is not a disaster.
Hey everyone, just a quick break before getting back to our author interview series with New York Times best-selling author Maggie Jackson, who's written the new book Uncertain, The Wisdom and Wonder of Being Unsure. I wanted to just mention our sponsor today, GoldCo, because I wanted to ask the question, have you crossed the benchmark of saving $50,000 for retirement? If so, give yourself a pat on the back. We are navigating unpredictable times, which makes it paramount to diversify and secure your retirement savings. I've taken action, me and Gretchen have, by investing in precious metals like gold and silver. My experience, absolutely perfect, seamless, thanks to GoldCo. Their top top-tier service and the simplicity of the entire process left me truly impressed. Their credibility, undeniable. Successfully aiding thousands with an astounding $2.5 billion placed in gold and silver. GoldCo stands tall with an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau. Their reputation further shines with over 5,000 five-star reviews. Their excellence is evident as a 7-time Inc. 5000 winner. Here's the golden opportunity for our dedicated Not Old Better Show listeners while supplies last. GoldCo is offering up to $10,000 in bonus silver. That's right, $10,000 in bonus silver. Curious? I'll bet you are. Dive in and diversify your savings. Visit goldco.com/Paul, Paul. That's me. Remember, that's goldco.com/Paul. So secure a bright and diverse future with gold and silver. Let GoldCo be your trusted companion in this journey. Hi, it's Paul. I just want to mention one of our sponsors, ShipStation. In particular, these holidays, don't let the holiday rush overwhelm you. ShipStation is here to simplify all of your shipping needs, allowing you to focus on what truly matters this season. My wife and I are both small business owners. My wife's business, her ballet studio, offers products for sale online. Shipping, returns, calculating postage costs, these can all be extremely confusing and challenging. Well, not with ShipStation. So, with the holiday season upon us, there's no question it's undoubtedly the busiest time of year. But here's the thing. You shouldn't have to stress over shipping your small business or e-commerce orders during this festive season. That's where ShipStation steps in to make your life easier. Imagine having more time, more money, and more energy to focus on what truly matters. Whether you're running your business from home like me or managing multiple warehouses, ShipStation is like having a trusted partner that takes care of your shipping needs. Speaking from my own experience, we have been using ShipStation for several years now. It has been a game changer for us. The dashboard, as you open up the software, is incredibly user-friendly, easy to use. You can set up an account just in a matter of moments. But what's even more exciting is that right now they're offering a free 60-day trial. So if you've been thinking about trying ShipStation, this is the perfect time. There are discounts available via ShipStation for USPS, UPS, DHL, all of these great discounts. There's over 130,000 companies that are already using ShipStation. Fantastic record of performance. So this holiday season, why not give yourself the gift of stress-free shipping for your business? It's as simple as visiting ShipStation.com and using the code NOB to sign up for your free 60-day trial. Remember, that's ShipStation.com. And don't forget to use the code NOB, ShipStation, your partner in shipping success. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Take action now and make this holiday season a breeze with ShipStation. Our guest today is Maggie Jackson. Maggie Jackson has authored the new book, Uncertain: The Wisdom and Wonder of Being Unsure. Maggie Jackson is known for her writing on social trends, particularly technology's impact on humanity. The book, Uncertain, is already getting some wonderful praise. I just enjoyed it, but I'm not the only one, Maggie Jackson. Dan Pink says it's incisive, timely, triumphant. Sherry Turkle, and I love what she has to say. She said, it's beautiful, it's inspirational, compelling, and urgently needed. I just felt the same. I felt like this book is needed. The timing is just exactly right, because I think in terms of where we are societally, we need to kind of move closer together as people, that listening to one another, taking a little bit more time to get to know one another, being uncertain as to what an outcome might be, might lead to some tolerance as opposed to intolerance. And you have these great examples in the book about LGBTQ activists. I think that's very relevant to our audience. And then, of course, the example that you cite about the civil rights leader protecting a Klansman. Maybe tell us about both those examples, or one you pick your choice. But I love those examples in particular, and maybe tell us a little bit more about those.
Sure. I think that's a very, very important, and it was very enlightening to me to dig into the research and then to be kind of on the front lines of, heroes. I will say, I don't think that's an overstatement.
Right,
with in the front lines with heroes of tolerance and of unsureness in the right way. And so, just to preface before I tell a story or two. The polarization in this country is so complex, but one of its deep roots is the human ability to categorize. I mean, we immediately, unconsciously, in milliseconds, decide whether that food looks tasty or it looks poisonous, and we decide whether someone is an in-group or an out-group member. I mean, again, just almost instantly. When you decide that someone is from the out-group, your facial processing areas, if you're looking at their face, your facial processing areas kind of go quiet. You label them, and then you literally cognitively turn away. You process their face in piecemeal rather than a more humanizing, holistic view. So from there, we can see how stereotyping and discrimination and dehumanizing roll out. Well, one of the most hopeful strategies now, scientifically proven hopeful strategies for not only combating categorization, but also for reaching better mutual understanding is something called perspective taking. Well, that's our grandmother's wisdom. It's just trying to see how the world looks from another point of view. And this is not empathy, but it's just, what does it look like when you're X person who's so different from me, or someone who I loathe? Well, I went canvassing in LA a few years ago with people from the LGBTQ Leadership Lab. That's an advocacy unit of one of the biggest LGBTQ centers in the country. And they spent 7 years trying to craft a way to actually speak with political opponents. People are deeply, deeply against gay rights. And they were successful. I mean, scientifically proven to lower prejudice by as much as a decade's worth of intolerance in the United States. They could do that in 10 minutes. Well, perspective taking was at the foundation of this. And not only that, but one of the most important aspects of this work is that, before and still in many ways, we not only talk to the neighbor and across the Thanksgiving table, but also we canvass. Political canvassing is just making bullet points and then hoping you overcome, if not destroy, the other person's argument. Well, the canvassers were actually, able to throw their scripts away, their talking points away, and by taking another's perspective, were then inspiring the opponent to take theirs as they traded stories. And not only were the bias of these people lowered, but then the hostility of the activists themselves was lowered through this work. Wow. So you had, in fact, created a space for mutual learning. And the most important point is, well, if I take the perspective of a convicted murderer for a minute, and the results are amazing, you're more likely to move closer and talk to them and see them as a teammate, etc. That is just a leap of imagination. I don't never will know what their perspective truly is. What you're essentially doing is injecting yourself into perplexity. You're loosening your own assumptions with that leap of imagination. And Socrates called it, the sort of infection of perplexity, which is a really strong but wonderful term. I think that's just so important that with a tiny little twist in our thinking, we can actually make space for each other. We can see not the set in stone wrong of that person whose politics you loathe, but their potential for change. And I don't know if I have time to give the brief story about the civil rights era.
Please.
But,
Please. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, I think what finishes this story and this sort of saga of polarization and understanding is I went to Durham, North Carolina. So after going to Los Angeles to canvass, I went back in time, in essence, to talk to a civil rights activist who was in her 80s, very frail. In fact, she died a few weeks after I talked to her. She was sharp as a tack. And to cut a long story short, in 1973, she did something which still is considered heroic and is very, very inspiring in Durham, across the South, and it's gaining traction in other corners of the world. So Anne Atwater was a housing activist, very poor person, sharecropper's daughter, and she was named to co-chair a committee to help smooth the way for desegregation in 1963 of the Durham schools. Well, someone in the city thought to name as her co-chair the head of the local Ku Klux Klan, which was, of course, unbelievable. But people were desperate to stop the tinderbox of potential violence. And long story short, the meetings came off and the two talked, Anne Atwater and C.P. Ellis. And at the end, she invited in a gospel choir to celebrate. And he then retreated and set up an exhibit that night in this elementary school where the meetings were being held of KKK paraphernalia. And at one moment in that evening, a group of Black teenagers were headed to, we might think almost naturally, take down that exhibit. And Anne Atwater blocked the doorway and said to them, get away from there. I'm quoting her, leave that alone. You need to read this material, not tear it up. If you want to know where a person is coming from, you've got to see what makes him think what he thinks. And so she freed herself from being in the wrong. She freed him from being forever in the wrong. She freed herself from being on the other side, from being his enemy. She opened up that space of mutual learning. They became friends. And then he quit the Klan and he, became an activist for Duke University maintenance workers who are largely Black at the time. So, it's a terrific illustration. It truly is still inspiring to so many people today of someone who could see the potential, or at least give someone a chance and not turn away. She gave him a chance. And, I wrote in the book, nothing's changed, he tried to say in setting up the exhibit. And she answered, but it could.
Wonderful. Very powerful. Yeah, I think that is one of those examples that just is going to resonate with so many. The other thing that I noted in the book that I really enjoyed was how you treat the subject of mental wellness, mental health, and how uncertainty can actually improve mental and emotional well-being. I wonder if you talk a little bit about that and tell us how that works.
Yes, and that is an incredibly surprising. Uncertainties links to resilience and human flourishing it's not only so important, but so surprising. And of course, for older adults, who suffered more so than many other generations in COVID and through their own vulnerability and through the social isolation. One statistic shows that during 2020, 1 in 4 older adults suffered some kind of anxiety or depression symptoms versus 1 in 10 who had been suffering, experiencing these symptoms before the pandemic. So I think this is very important. And what's really interesting and new is that when people can bolster their tolerance of uncertainty, and I'll explain what I mean, that's actually being used in interventions, programs by psychologists. The bolstering of your tolerance for uncertainty is being used successfully to lower even intractable anxiety, depression, or even just bolster resilience in very different populations, from multiple sclerosis patients to college students to people who have anxiety, et cetera. And what does that mean? Well, we all have a kind of a personal disposition, our comfort zone with uncertainty. Some people would love it if you threw them a surprise party. Some people really couldn't stand it. And so people who really, really, really hate uncertainty are a bit more rigid thinkers. They're less open to less curious, etc. So if you can kind of move a little bit toward openness to uncertainty, you're going to be more able to contend with life itself, which is, after all, always going to be unpredictable and unsure. And so the other wonderful part of this is that the exercises, the practices that are being taught people are very simple. Honestly, they are incremental, kind of daily life exercises, such as trying a new dish in a restaurant. We all go to the comforting old, neighborhood joint and order the same dish, and it feels good on a Friday night. And I love it. And I order sort of the same mocha chip ice cream all summer long, believe me. But really, when we can kind of practice being in the unknown. So for instance, one a patron or client of a psychologist was challenged to delegate a little bit more at work. I mean, this can be true in the home. You might be the doyen of the dishwasher. Maybe just let it go and let somebody else do it and see that it's not a disaster not knowing what'll happen. So there are little practicing steps like that you can take to get a little more comfortable. And what's really important is, going back to the point about no surprise, no learning, you're actually using uncertainty to gain comfort in the obviously unsettling nature of uncertainty. In other words, you are surprising yourself by showing it's not a decided disaster. And these sort of strategies are being taught to young doctors who, hide behind certainty because they're so afraid to admit otherwise. It's being taught to, again, college students and all sorts of different groups. And it's very new work, but it's very, very exciting.
What are the other steps that really I thought was a powerful one, especially along the lines of this idea of no surprises, no learning, is the idea of daydreaming. Why is daydreaming important, especially important for creativity? Because it can be part of uncertainty.
Well, exactly. I cast a wide net, and the book is based on what I call modes of uncertainty in action. So we have the surgeon deliberating, and that shows how uncertainty under duress is important and crucial. And then there are different sorts of ways of which uncertainty can be a kind of suspense. I mean, sleeping on a problem or having a daydream looks and feels inactive, and so therefore shameful in our culture of activity. And yet these are far more important aspects of mind than we give credit to. And they're all based on being uncertain. And it's funny because daydreaming was not denigrated in society, at least in the West, until the industrial age, when it was, we began to venerate efficiency. And in fact, daydreaming was originally in the 19th century seen as a female kind of malady, really. I mean, Freud was scornful of daydreaming. And so we can see that, this activity, because they call it decoupling from the rest of the world. Your perceptions, your kind of sensory perception actually tones down and networks related to inner life of the brain become more active. And why is this important? Well, you're using different parts of the brain that are related to cognitive flexibility. So, and just to preface that, I should say, most daydreaming is future oriented. So it's really asking yourself a what if question, oh, I might have a difficult conversation coming up with my child or my sister. And so I might daydream a little bit, launch into the away from the here and now in order to run through different scenarios. And studies show that even if it's a negative thing that you're daydreaming about, daydreaming is a de-stressor because it lowers your cortisol levels, etc. And the link between daydreaming and creativity is really cognitive flexibility, because people who are daydreamers tend to be more cognitively flexible. And that flexibility, to stop thinking just of the familiar and move into kind of the remote connections or wild ideas or something, that's obviously a wonderful, the daydream is basically the space with which to do so. And so when you're daydreaming, you're exercising cognitive flexibility. You are seeing life from different points of view. You're seeing different perspectives. That conversation could go terribly. It could go really well. It could go in the middle. And so that's a really important aspect of intelligence, cognitive flexibility, but also important for creativity. And in fact, I call daydreaming the sketchbook of the mind, because just like the sketchbook that the artist carries around to try out things and to do some scribbling and to, do the kind of Leonardo da Vinci sketching of ideas and try things out. Well, we have our own portable inner space for sketching out life itself and for inventing ourselves and for inventing things in general. And I think daydreaming couldn't be more beneficial. And we don't want to always be sitting in a corner, but having a good daydream is something we shouldn't be embarrassed by, and we should certainly encourage in children.
So much great stuff in this book. Maggie Jackson, I could talk to you a long time about it. I really want to make sure that our audience pays attention to Maggie Jackson and her wonderful new book, Uncertain. We'll have links so that our audience can find out more information about Maggie Jackson and this fantastic book, Uncertain, The Wisdom and Wonder of Being Unsure. I just have one final question for you, Maggie Jackson, and it's kind of one of those questions, and you write about this in Chapter 8. This is one of those ripped from the headlines scenarios where we're starting to see artificial intelligence really get an awful lot of attention. And the rise of AI has a lot of benefits potentially, but it also presents a lot of risks. And so I wonder if you could tell us how uncertainty fits into that and how it might save us, from some of these unstoppable machines, and then maybe introduce us, if you would, to the Virginia Tech, not too far away from where I live, the Virginia Tech I don't know robot as part of your answer for us.
Yeah, that was a wonderful, interesting evidence of uncertainty where I didn't expect to find uncertainty whatsoever. I mean, you don't think about technology and uncertainty as going hand in hand, much less AI. Mm-hmm. And that's because AI has been basically founded and built on one definition of intelligence. That is, to be smart is to achieve one's goals however you can. That's the rationalist view of intelligence. So that's why robots and models and AI itself is wonderfully good at learning as it goes and teaching itself and et cetera. And that's where the wonders of AI come in. But it's also where the risks come because of its potential unstoppability once it gains more and more intelligence, becomes generalized intelligence, as we say. So there are some of the top leaders in AI who are working on reimagining the field so that AI can be unsure. And what does that mean? I mean, it's hard to grasp, but basically it means that instead of pursuing a goal at all costs, the unsure robot will be stoppable, therefore teachable. It can be interruptible. It's also more honest and transparent, as they say, about admitting its uncertainty. So you might have a cop robot that's accompanying a human police officer on the beat, and they're chasing a suspect. And in today's world, the cop robot will probably give a indication, arrest or not, or worst case, shoot or not, etc. But the unsure robot will admit that it's only 70% certain, not 100%, that suspect is actually the culprit. And so by having the transparency of admitting the uncertainty that does go on in its probabilistic reasoning that goes on under the hood, that's a really important step forward. And it's really interesting because people in beta, now people are actually, scientists all over the world are beginning to create these models to find new ways to create antibiotics or robots that will be used in manufacturing, et cetera, that are unsure. And people who are using them in studies find that unsure robot, they consider it more intelligent really interesting, and also more cooperative and more able. It's called the human compatible AI, which is, it says it all. So I went to Virginia Tech, where one of the leading laboratories in the world is working on this very problem, run by a young scientist called Dylan Losey. And I was able to actually use a robot arm. It was just going to be drawing a line on a table, which would be a kind of manufacturing type activity. And this robot would show me different ways that it intended to do this. And in other words, it wasn't verbal, but I could, with the press of a button, choose different ways. It was being unsure in the moment rather than, a current kind of robot cannot learn on the fly. And it really gave me a really huge inkling of what our new relationship with technology could be, but not only safe, which is, of course, paramount, but also more cooperative. And it also gave me a wonderful, hopefulness about something that, is very alarming because we know so little about AI in general life. And we also, I think, have to not fall into the trap, as we have with so many other technological innovations, of thinking about it in black and white ways. It's good, it's bad, it's horrible, it's not. With using our uncertainty to approach technology, we are all the more nuanced and intelligent about how we create these incredibly wondrous but risky innovations.
Maggie Jackson, best-selling author of the new book, Uncertain, The Wisdom and Wonder of Being Unsure. What a great conversation with you. Again, the book is just fantastic. Lots of great praise for it already. We will put links so that our audience can find out more about Maggie Jackson and her new book, Uncertain. Really a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for your time today, and have a great rest of your day, Maggie Jackson.
Oh, thank you. It was an honor and a pleasure. And thank you very much for all your interest in uncertainty and all your fantastic questions. Wonderful conversation.
My thanks to our sponsors today, GoldCo and ShipStation. Please support our sponsors as they in turn support the show. My thanks to award-winning New York Times best-selling author Maggie Jackson, who generously read from her new book, Uncertain, The Wisdom and Wonder of Being Unsure. My thanks to you, my wonderful audience here on radio and podcast. Please be well, be safe, and let's talk about better. The Not Old Better Show author interview series on radio and podcast. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next week.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Not Old Better Show. To find out more about all of today's stories or to view our extensive back catalog of previous shows, simply visit notold-better.com. Join us again next time as we deep dive into some of the most fascinating real-life stories from across the world, all focused on this wonderful experience of getting better, not just older. Let's talk about better. The Not Old Better Show.